welcome to Lynx River Talk. Today we are here to discuss with you Season 1, Episode 5, Letting Go. But first, new character intros, we've got 2. First off, we have Agnes Claybank.
She's
Hannah's grandmother.
And yeah, so she is the father of our next character.
She's the mother of our next character.
Sorry, the mother of our next character. A little bit of gender bending going on there. And that is Louis Claybank, who is the father of Hannah.
And
Michelle's daughter.
Yes. And the son of Agnes Claybank.
Exactly.
And he is also a former alcoholic. So before we get into the summary, we learned an actually interesting tidbit about Leon. We found out his middle name is James, so he is Leon James Dela.
LGD or LJD?
I was going to say that's not G.
Alright.
Anyways, let's jump into the summary.
So Leon, along with the town, they line up for their $5 handshake. $5 and a handshake.
I was gonna say,
Eric.
Of a handshake worth $5, like.
Well, it is because they get a $5 gift from the government that symbolizes their signing of Treaty 11, which was an important.
Well, yeah, I know, but the way you had phrased it before, it sounded like the handshake was magic. I don't know.
You're right.
Don't worry about it.
I blew
Maybe
it. I
I'm
was
crazy.
trying to cover.
And we get to see Eric in some lovely red.
Yeah, and Sarah takes notice. She says, "It's you." He's wearing his Mountie uniform.
It's a nice color. I like that
well,
red.
he looks good in it too. You know, I mean, I will admit.
Doesn't Michelle wear it at one point too?
No. I don't think you ever. I don't believe you ever see Michelle in the.
No. Yeah, you're right. I don't think so. Never mind.
I think somebody else might wear the uniform at some point. Anyway.
No spoilers. So Hannah steals some candy from Jerry's bags. Eric not to tell. 2 seconds later, though, Michelle comes into the detachment and finds out. Find out Jerry's not pressing charges, and Hannah's got some attitude.
Yeah, she's spitting fire.
We love this part from Selena. It was great. One of her earlier roles on the show. Cute, sassy, fierce.
Yeah, and then Louis Claybank returns.
After almost 8 years.
Yeah, we learn he's been gone for a long time. And then, Hannah and Michelle argue over Louis, and then Hannah brings
not
up...
over Louis.
Oh, sorry.
They hadn't, Hannah hasn't seen him yet.
Yeah, sorry. It was
They're just
over
arguing.
the thefts, so...
Yes.
Yeah, and then Hannah brings up Michelle's drinking days, which, is a little bit of a dig to Michelle, obviously.
And then Hannah meets her dad.
Yeah, so then, she hasn't seen her dad for 8 years.
Oh,
and
yeah, they said almost 8 years, so...
She was so young that really this is like the first time meeting him.
Yeah, she doesn't remember him, it seems, but she would have been roughly 3 when he had left, because we found out a couple of episodes ago Hannah's 11.
So then they have a feast, and there's some dancing, and then that kind of gives way to Louis talking with Hannah at a table, and then Peter off at another table with Ellen and Michelle spitting fire himself.
Oh, yeah, he's just going nuts. Like, eventually, though, Ellen can tell, like, Michelle just had enough. Like, she just sends Peter away, which is just even more funny, because then Peter kind of throws a little kid temper tantrum and like pushes the table or whatever, or the chair or whatever. It was funny. And then Michelle's all worried that Ellen's gonna make her talk, but Ellen's just like, eat.
So then Elsie pushes Eric to sit with Sarah by offering up her seat.
Just randomly has to get up right when Eric is walking
timing,
by.
And a little bit of matchmaking going on there by the wise old Elsie.
There's plenty of other chairs around too, Elsie.
So then we learn that Willie told Harris, because he tells Peter, that Louis is living in Calgary with a white woman, which I don't know why that's a big deal, but.
Well, it's the fact that he's living with a woman, period, and well, he also hasn't said anything about it. But Michelle and Louis dance, and Hannah is in awe, and I mean like awe, like the way you describe it as like a teenage girl in love the first time. Like I mean, she was like in love.
So then Eric and Sarah have a little dance.
Eric forces Sarah to dance. But then once they're walking outside, Eric makes it very clear he wants to just be friends with Sarah.
So then Louis tells the story to Michelle later on of how they were together.
With him leaving.
And how he stole her welfare check, or their welfare check, spent it all on booze, dropped the booze on the ground, and then it ended up licking it off the ground, which is
he was on his hands and knees.
Kind of a sad tale of admission, obviously.
Yeah, we've got a very, very touching scene. It really pulls on your heartstrings from Byron. It's very, wow. And then Michelle and him go on a ski trip.
Yeah, they actually have sex right after, which is, you didn't really see it coming, but it's just like, he apologizes and she takes it, she wanted to hear it, I think, for so long that it becomes this emotional moment, and then they have sex. And then Hannah sees Louis in the morning, which is not what Michelle wanted.
No, especially since they hadn't had a chance to talk as to what exactly happened, what it was, and 2 seconds later, he's talking about taking her to Calgary for 3 weeks to meet some girl named Karen. So it's obvious, why are you giving her these hints that you guys are gonna get back together? And
that really upsets
that was another stupid thing.
Michelle. Actually, her hearing about him wanting to take her away.
Oh yeah, and we find out the white woman's name's Karen.
Yeah, another Karen. Huh? So, anyways.
Then we got Eric and Michelle talking. Eric seems to be a great confidant to Michelle. These last few bits, we see their relationship getting closer. Really since episode 2, you see them getting closer and closer.
Yeah, he's. You can see that he's growing to be a very good support system for her, and he really cares about her, which is good. They get along well. She, obviously didn't have the greatest partner last time.
Or he just at least had his own.
Yeah, he had his own problems.
We don't know how good of a partner he was. He could have been a great partner until his problems.
Don't want to blame Gord. Things we don't know.
Give us your Gord theories. We still want to hear them.
Give Gord a chance.
We still want to hear your Gord Jackman theories. Okay, so next we've got TV caught for not being in school, and then rats out with Hannah. She took off with her daddy. And Michelle is frantic, running her all over the place, and then Eric kind of is like, well, do you know anywhere he would take her, or in Wolverine Lake, because that's the only place they can get to, and then she's got this aha moment and takes off. Yeah,
so then she realizes that that's where the grandmother lives, Agnes, and
we'll get to that after. Elsie butts into Eric and Sarah's love life some more.
Yeah, and she invites Sarah over for supper. Eric invites Sarah over for supper for some steaks. And then
Louis took Hannah to his mother's, Agnes's, and previously before that, his brother's. And then Michelle takes her home.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a confrontation there, mainly between Agnes and Michelle. Louis actually is just trying to kind of smooth things over, because you can see he actually probably is a little bit
Yeah.
sad that, or a little bit, apologetic of what he did, but on the other hand, it's like, dude, you just took her without asking. Like.
Yeah, and Agnes is like, it's his kid too, and Michelle is just like, he hasn't seen her in like 8 years. What are you talking about? Like, he shouldn't have any parental rights here. But anyway, so then Hannah stops the truck, jumps out, throws like this temper tantrum. Like Hannah's like, Michelle's dragging her, and Hannah's like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Michelle has to actually put her in the back, like a common criminal.
Yeah.
Drive her back to town.
Eric's steaks are frozen still, so Eric, I don't think you had really taken them out when you said you took them out.
Yeah, I think something's going on here.
And then Eric and Sarah talk about problems with Lindy, Eric's wife.
Yeah, and Sarah actually says, I'm here for you, basically, because he says, I don't think, I didn't want to, bother you with this.
She seemed like she kind of regretted it after.
Yeah, in a way, because, let's face it, she doesn't do real well with emotional stuff.
Yeah, well, also, like, they seem to have, like, an attraction to each other, so, like, talking about that isn't...
True that.
But yeah, then Hannah and Michelle talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Louis and Michelle talk, and they argue about visiting rights, and then he says basically he's going to go to the council and try to get custody.
Yeah, well, he had talked about visiting rights, and then Michelle fired back about if he wants visiting rights, then he should have to pay child support and alimony back payments.
Mm-hmm. So then Eric talks to Michelle about it, and doesn't Peter intervene at that point, at some point?
No, that's later.
Oh, okay, sorry. So then,
then Peter and Hannah talk, and then we find out Sam needs his axe. Willie took it again, and then Eric's got this awesome joke. He jokes about buying one for Willie for Christmas, and Michelle. I guess that's really Michelle's joke. Michelle says he'd still borrow Sam's. I thought it was just so funny, and I loved it, and I needed it,
true.
and I had to repeat it.
So then Peter, Eric, and Michelle, this is the point where they argue about Louis. Peter obviously does not want Louis to have visiting rights, and then Eric, you can tell he's a little torn because of his own situation.
Eric's being, I think Eric's opinion is very one-sided here. He's not thinking about the actual situation itself. He's just thinking about his personal situation and what he wants.
And a lot of fathers do get shut away from their kids. I don't think his advice
really
but
counts here. But anyways,
it's different in this case.
So yeah, then Hannah wants to live with Louis permanently, and Karen, she wants them to adopt her. She wants a custody hearing and all this, and you see this look on Louis' face, what the have I got myself into?
Yeah, it's like he doesn't want to tell her and break her heart, but at the same time, it's like he's thinking to himself, "Man, I'm not going to be able to go through with this type thing."
Then Eric and Sarah have their food fight.
Yeah, and then they kiss, and then there's a little bit of, that.
Ski trip.
Yeah, we get another musical interlude in the background, Lynx River style, and then there's some definite sexual activity going on, some wincing and grimacing.
Okay, continue.
All right. So then Louis talks to...
Well, then there's some weird awkwardness between them that pursues.
She wakes up in the middle of the night. She had intended him to leave, right? And
right after.
And then
but he passed out.
He fell asleep, and then that really bothers her because of her, kind of hang-ups. So when she wakes up, he's there. She doesn't want to wake him up to have to deal with him.
But she didn't even wake up. She just went to the other bed. He just fell asleep right after, I think.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so anyways, she goes to the other room, and he wonders
well,
why.
to the couch, yeah.
And then she's like, basically like, I can't share a bed, and
Yeah.
it becomes awkward. And then he has to sneak out, which is even more awkward because it's like, talk about a bad town to have to sneak around in.
Yeah, well then he's like talking about how like it shouldn't have happened or something.
Yeah, that's
so,
another thing too, because of his wife.
So that makes it less awkward, of course. So Louis talks to Michelle. He's leaving and he's not taking Hannah, and leaves it to Michelle to be the parent in this situation. Again, he leaves it. He's been gone more than half her life. And he leaves it to Michelle to tell her.
Yeah, and then while they're in the middle of that, he just takes off in his truck, and she hears him, so because he's got a big old truck, it's loud. So she runs out after him, and then of course Michelle has to chase her down, and she's crying.
Hannah's chasing the truck, screaming. Another great scene by Selena.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten out already. We're only on episode 5, but we've had quite a few characters have these really beautiful emotional breakdowns.
Yeah,
and we've seen all these different actors do them beautifully. But we've got to remember, like, Selena was like very little at this age. She did a very good job playing this scene.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know her background, but most likely she probably didn't have much acting background at this point. This is probably like her first work.
She moves you to tears. Like, you can feel her pain.
Yeah, and Michelle, of course, crying too.
Yeah,
because,
and then you've got Michelle's breakdown with it too. That helps. So yeah, they kind of chase, and then they break down together and on the road, and it's just.
Yeah, and then they have a talk about.
It's a really nice scene. And then they go to the river.
Yeah, they have a talk about the whole thing, and Hannah admits to her that she wasn't planning to come back, and then Michelle, you can tell she doesn't really know what to say about that. It's obviously really hard to swallow, but on the other hand, she doesn't want to jump down her throat when they're trying to have like a discussion about it. So yeah, that was the episode. I mean, it was really an emotional one.
That ending scene of Hannah and Michelle on the rock at the river was a very beautiful, picturesque moment as well.
They do a great job making you believe that they're mother and daughter in that series. Like you really get that sense.
Yeah. So we'll jump right into questions. So, I kind of phrased this a little weird on Facebook, and I don't think people got really what I meant. Sorry. I had to edit it a couple of times because I realized I was missing like details that didn't make sense. Or like the question could be answered just by watching the episode. So.
It's all right.
Anyways, why do you think Louis Claybank left the way he did? So without any goodbyes to Hannah specifically, like he only says anything to Michelle. He doesn't actually say goodbye to Hannah. So my question is, why do you think that?
Well, I think it was because it is. I'd say it's mainly cowardice. I don't mean to sound harsh, but that's kind of what it is. He has an easier time letting down Michelle than he does Hannah, right? So he's kind of letting, like you said in our summary, kind of letting Michelle do the dirty work for him, and that kind of it seems like that's kind of what he did 8 years ago too.
Yeah, well, he just
not that raising a kid is dirty work, but I'm just saying he's not taking responsibility.
Yeah, well, he also just wants to seem like the good guy. Like, he doesn't want to parent her. He wants to, pretty much, like, be her grandparent.
Yeah, he loves her, but he doesn't want to have the responsibility.
Well, not just that. Like, he wants to, like, give her stuff and spoil her and do that kind of stuff. He doesn't want to have to be the bad guy ever in her eyes, it seems. He, at least that's the vibe I got. So, I don't know why he really did it, but I'd say I pretty much go with yours though. best theory I've got. So, next question.
So, do you think Michelle was right for not wanting Hannah to go off with Louis?
Yes and no. No, because of Michelle's reasonings, which we find out in the series. Her reasonings were really just because she's got this like hold on Hannah, and she kind of can't let her go.
Mm-hmm.
So no, because of that reasoning. But in general, if that wasn't her reasoning, yes, because this man, she has not seen him in 8 years. Maybe he's murdered millions of people. We don't know what he's been up to.
Yeah.
Nobody's known what he's been up to for all these years. He's missing. That he doesn't have any connection with his daughter. And to just have him take her for 3 weeks out of the blue, out of a beginning thing, to me, I never agree with that. That seems ridiculous. And I'd be the same thing if it was vice versa. If he had the custody and the mother came. It's just way too long to really know those people anymore.
The thing is too, he doesn't know, or she doesn't. Sorry, Michelle does not know Karen.
Yeah,
she's never met her before. So you're talking about him saying he wants to bring her daughter to live for 3 weeks with someone that Michelle doesn't even know.
Yeah, that's another thing. I live with my dad, and he'd almost never introduce girls to me. So for Louis to introduce himself to Hannah and then introduce a girl right away, also seems weird. It should be just them really concentrating for now. And like I said, it should be smaller visits and whatnot. He shouldn't be taking her to Calgary on his I'd say that maybe a couple months down the road.
Yeah.
That's cool, and that's quite a long period. And he's taking her to a whole other province. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, what do you think of Louis Claybank? What do you think of Louis Claybank? Good guy, bad guy, misunderstood, and I actually wrote goodbye.
So yeah, well, I think he's one of these guys where down deep he probably is a good guy. He doesn't seem to me like he's a mean guy or he has bad intentions, but it's like he just doesn't follow through on what he's supposed to do, right? He probably never wanted to leave Michelle, but he was scared and, ran out. And then the same thing kind of happens, I think, later on with Hannah, where, he's, he wants to be that, back in Hannah's life, but then realizes, this is, I can't do this. And it's kind of maybe a confidence issue he has inside him or something, maybe because of being a recovering alcoholic.
Well, he realized he couldn't do it. He realized he couldn't do it full time, but it's okay, well, you can just. It's
we never should have agreed.
It's he couldn't say no to her. He had this really horrible thing of couldn't be the bad guy to her, and
it would have been better.
And that is what messed him up, because he could have easily
leveled with her then.
Exactly. Yeah. Just talk to her at least, told her, or
maybe he does say we got to take this slow, but then he doesn't really follow through on it. He just kind of lets her dictate after that. I'm going to tell Mom that I want to stay with you forever, basically. And at that point, he should have been like, whoa, hey, we're just going to visit at first, and then we'll talk about maybe, living situations, right? Because it's
yeah, we shouldn't have just taken off, maybe talk to Michelle, they could have actually, done a sit-down, all of them, or something. Definitely better ways to have done it, especially since now you're left with no contact with her. You were going to have those 3 weeks to take her. You can still have those 3 weeks to take her. You're not committed to having her full time, and besides, there's almost no way you're going to get full time, especially if you don't want it. So, no issues.
All right,
anyways.
So that's our questions.
Yeah, send us your answers. Facebook.com/LynxRiverTalk. LynxRiverTalk@gmail.com for our email. Comment below on our YouTube page. We're responsive to Facebook messages and emails as well if you want to actually discuss the show.
Yeah, sharing our show and subscribing, liking it. Basically, that's what helps us get the word out and expand our show, and it's going to help us do more things.
Yeah, tune in for next episode, Season 1, Episode 6, Out of the Blue.
All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.